have to shoot at an incredible clip from the outside once you could tell that the inside was established and Janai Broome was going to have that type of game. I mean, when you go for a double double and it's not even halftime, I mean, think about this. He had 17 points at halftime. The rest of the Auburn basketball team had 16 points. So once you saw that Janai Broome was going to have that kind of afternoon, to me, it was going to be okay, just name the score. Auburn is going to take care of this and get to San Antonio.
Yeah, and I think that was the thing that a lot of Auburn fans were looking for, similar to what you got, I guess, in the BYU game from Mark Sears. Both of those guys, we know, kind of the leaders of Auburn and Alabama this year, and hadn't had the kind of tournament you were expecting. You got that from Mark Sears against BYU, then you get it from Janai Broome last night against Michigan State. But yeah, 25 points, 14 rebounds for Janai Broome last night. He goes out with the injury. Everyone starts to hold their breath a little bit if they're an Auburn fan, Pat, because you can see him, I guess, holding his arm, holding his elbow. You could see him talking to his parents there courtside before they took him back to the locker room. Some, I guess, lip reading experts out there would tell you that he had essentially, I guess, been telling people there on the sideline that it looked like he was done, and that the injury looked like it was going to be pretty serious. But lo and behold, a few minutes later, he comes back out of the locker room, returns to the floor, and proceeds to hit a 3-pointer essentially right after he returns to the game. So it looks like, at least looking ahead to next week and now for Auburn, that they're going to have Janai Broome and he's going to be good to go, because that was a very scary moment, I think, for a lot of Auburn fans, where the game, you felt pretty good that even if he wasn't able to return last night, that Auburn was going to have enough to hold on and beat Michigan State. But looking ahead, the outlook for the Final Four would certainly be a lot different if you weren't going to have Janai Broome available.
Anytime you see the parents coming down towards the
Yep.
bench, whether it's football, basketball, whatever the case may be, you're expecting the worst case scenario. And listening to Janai Broome after the game, when they asked him directly, okay, what took place in the locker room? What did the doctors say? And they said they checked me out and I was good to go, that there was no damage and, go play basketball. And that's exactly what he did. So that's a huge momentum swing, especially when you bring him back into the game and then he hits an outside shot. I mean, that pretty much sealed the deal for Auburn. But you can't say enough about Auburn's defense, what they were able to do. They held Michigan State to just 34% shooting, including only 30% from the outside. And we opened the show by talking about how Michigan State just not very prolific from shooting the outside ball. And so if you can limit them and not let them have one of those games where Creighton did against Louisville in round one when they shot almost 60%, you knew that Auburn was going to be able to take care of business, and they did. And up until the final minute, Auburn also took care of the basketball. Now, they ended up, the final stat line was 4 turnovers for Auburn, but most of those turnovers, Conrad, came in the final minute or so when Michigan State's press kind of gave them a headache a little bit. But before that last minute or so, I mean, Auburn took care of the basketball. They didn't give up possessions, and that was big. So just an overall, just a dominating performance. I mean, one that we have talked about many times during this basketball season for Auburn. So for the second time in the school's history, second time under Bruce Pearl, they're going to the Final Four.
Yeah, I mean, I think once you, because it was, I think 8-8, and then Auburn took a 10-8 lead, and at that point, that's when they went on their a 12-0 run, something like that, to kind of separate themselves from Michigan State. And you give credit to Michigan State because they did fight back and they were able to keep it around a 8 to 10 point game for the majority of the second half. So they never let Auburn just completely pull away. But yeah, the final score maybe looks a little bit closer than the actual game was if you're there watching it. But credit to Michigan State, they certainly didn't give up and wave the white flag at any point. But Auburn moves on to the Final Four, where they will take on Florida. So we will have the All SEC Final Four matchup to kick things off. The first matchup on Saturday. Florida, if I'm not mistaken, Pat, a slight favorite
That's
right
correct.
now,
Well,
about 1.5. Is that still what you're seeing right now for the early
yes,
line?
that is correct. Yep.
Yep. So the Gators going to be an early favorite there over the Auburn Tigers, but a rematch of a game that we all remember where Florida went into Neville Arena earlier this year and took care of business. So we'll see if Auburn can get revenge and advance to the national championship game for the first time ever. But they will be taking on the Florida Gators. We will get to Florida and their game against Texas Tech a little bit later on here this morning. But from congratulating one half of the state in the Auburn Tigers, Pat, we have to now go to the other side of the state, the one that I unfortunately reside in for the next 365 days. And that is the Alabama country. And that is Alabama took on Duke in the Elite Eight, coming off that record setting performance against BYU. And I know we joked about it on the morning show on Friday. We joked about it a little bit on Three Man Front when I was with y'all for a few minutes. But the idea of, man, I hope you save some of those 3-pointers for the Duke game, and that did not appear to be the case on Saturday as Duke knocked off Alabama 85-65. Alabama, after their record shooting performance against BYU, they went 24-51 from 3-point range. Against Duke, they were 8 for 32. And unfortunately, Pat, just not enough shots falling for Alabama. You knew it was another one of those games where you're 12, 13 minutes into a game. Mark Sears hasn't scored yet. And unfortunately, it was just very reminiscent of the other losses that Alabama had in the regular season where, on the nights where the offense stalled out, the shots weren't falling for them. It was going to be very, very tough for them to win. And when you throw in an opponent the caliber of Duke, it was a bad recipe for the Crimson Tide on Saturday.
Well, we're just talking about watching the Michigan State Auburn game, how you felt really good about Auburn and their ability to do what they did down low. Well, what Duke was able to do defensively to push Alabama out even further behind the 3-point arc, and their length was a problem for Alabama. I mean, when Duke comes out and they have two 7-0 runs in the first 12 minutes, it really put Alabama behind the 8 ball, and you could tell early on that Alabama was not going to have the type of shooting night from the outside as they had in the BYU game. Not that anyone thought that they were going to shoot at that clip, but if you're going to beat a team like Duke, especially with their bigs, you've got to open it up from the outside, and that just really never came. And you mentioned Mark Sears. He did not score until a minute 50 to go until halftime. So he only had 2 points, 3 turnovers, and 4 assists when he hit that basket. So he had double the amount of assists and he had more turnovers than he had points. So that was a problem. But the Tide was only shooting 26% from the outside at halftime. And when Aiden Sherrill is tied for leading your team at halftime, no offense to Sherrill, but you've got bigger problems because that tells you that Sears, Holloway, and Youngblood are not hitting their shots from the outside. So that was a problem. And I thought at one point, Alabama had a run in them. I think it was under the 12 timeout in the second half. Duke had gone over 3 minutes without a basket. Alabama had gotten some stops. Duke had turned the ball over, but Alabama could not move off the Duke lead at all. They could not get anything going. So you have over 3 minutes of that type of offense with Duke not scoring any points, and Alabama just could not take advantage of it. And also, so many people want to talk about the outside shots for Alabama. But as we've talked about on this DNA of this basketball team all season long, that Nate Oates will tell you that his number one goal is to go downhill and try to get his team, obviously layups, and try to get them to the foul line before shooting 3-pointers. Well, Alabama was 9 of 20 on layups. You saw multiple times when Amori missed dunks.
Mm-hmm.
You had other times that you challenged their bigs at the rim and you either missed layups or had the balls deflected or knocked out by flag or the other bigs down low. So right there, you gave up 11 points. That'd be 22 points. You missed 11 shots, which is considered layups. So, you couldn't even get the easy baskets. If you can't get the easy baskets, can't get to the free throw line, and your outside game is just not there, that is a recipe for an 85-65 blowout, and that's what we got.
Yeah, and I think, if you had told most Alabama fans on Friday or on Saturday morning, hey, Cooper Flag's only going to have 16 points in this game tonight, you would have felt really good about Alabama's chances of maybe pulling off the upset and being moving on to a second Final Four in 2 years. But yeah, you couple that with Mark Sears, who finishes with 6 points. He had the turnover problem, like you mentioned. He finishes with 5 turnovers, only 6 points there on Saturday. Phylon led the way, scoring with 16 points. Grant Nelson had 10 and 7 for you, and even going back to what you were saying, how Alabama just really couldn't put a dent in Duke's lead. Even when you had moments like Grant Nelson, stuffing Cooper Flag at the rim, and one of those moments where it feels like, all right, momentum can finally shift for you. Just nothing able to come out of it on the offensive end for Alabama. And, 2 nights after you have your three guards combined to make 21 3-pointers, Sears, Holloway, and Youngblood combined to make three against Duke.
Mm-hmm.
So that, yeah, that is not going to be a recipe paired with all of the misses on the bunnies and things like that you were just talking about, Pat. And that's why Alabama finds themselves back at home now watching the rest of the tournament from Tuscaloosa and 3 straight years making it to a Sweet 16, back-to-back Elite Eights. A lot of success for Nate Oates. I know a lot of people will look at the season as a success and as a continuation of what happened last year and being able to go and make some good runs in the NCAA tournament. But I think we can also agree that the reality of it is you came into the season with expectations of making it back to a Final Four and honestly of competing and hopefully winning a national championship. You were a top three team coming into the year. You had a lot of returning talent, a lot of veteran guys coming back and trying to run it back and hopefully get that title. And you came up short. And so while there's a lot of good accomplishments this year for Alabama, I definitely think that not being in a Final Four, especially when you look and are watching Auburn celebrate their second trip to the Final Four under Bruce Pearl, it definitely leads to it being a disappointing season. But that's the price of expectations and that's the price of success, right, Pat? Is once you've gotten a taste of it, it's hard to go back and not make it back to the top of that mountain for another year. And now that's the standard for both Alabama and Auburn moving forward. And Auburn now with a chance to compete for a title and Alabama coming up a little bit short.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I know Nate Oates after the game, he kind of addressed some of that and the expectations and this being the greatest 3 years in the history of Alabama basketball, and you really can't argue that from a number standpoint. They tied finishes 28-9. That's the second most wins in school history. You make the fourth Sweet 16 in 5 years, and it's second Elite Eight, as you mentioned. Now the third in school history. You just were unable to get to your second Final Four, but a lot of really good things happened with this Alabama basketball team. And I think it was also very important, Conrad, if you go back a year, you getting to the Final Four, because that Final Four puts at least your basketball program on a footing from an economic standpoint that really needed to happen. One, you were able to secure and know that Nate Oates was going to be the person in charge. You got the Board of Trustees to vote on the practice facility. That to them was more important than redoing Coleman Coliseum or building a whole brand new arena at this time because of the economy. So you were able to pump a lot of money because of the excitement of a Final Four. And so you were able to go out and you were be able to put together a roster, which people tell us off the air that it was north of $6 million. Now, it was not the $10 million that Arkansas put together, and Arkansas just got to the Sweet 16. But still, I think it was able to put Alabama on the upper echelon in the conference moving forward, that this is the expectations, and I don't think Nate Oates is going to back down from those expectations. And so on the three-man front Twitter poll question of the day, we actually asked folks their opinion and to give the Alabama basketball season a letter grade. So you can go to the three-man front Twitter page, and we'd like your input because that'll be one of the topics of discussion that we have today during three-man front is what letter grade would you give Alabama basketball for a season that fell short of the Final Four, A, B, C, or F? Because you will have some people say, listen, you got to an Elite Eight. It's only the third time that's ever happened in Alabama basketball history. That's got to be an A, right? Okay, give them a B because, granted, you fell short of your goal of making it to the Final Four national championship, but it was still a really good season. You'll have some groups to say, well, no, it was a C. It was okay, average. You didn't win the SEC. You didn't win the SEC basketball tournament. You didn't get to the Final Four. So it was meh. It was an okay season. And then you will have that group of folks that says, you know what, it was Final Four bust for this team, and I'm going to give them an F. So that's your four options. But right now, the sanity, I think, is ruling the party, at least this early in the morning, where 46% says, you know what, I give them a B. Yes, we fell a little bit short of the ultimate goal of getting to the Final Four, but we all know how difficult it is to get there. So as of this moment, it seems like most audience members of Jocks 94.5 and Three Man Front are saying it was a good season. Not great, but it was a good season, giving him a B.
Yeah, and I also think, of course, hindsight's always 2020, but if we're a couple of weeks out from now and it turns out the Duke has won the national championship and they just, are this dominant force throughout the Final Four as well, maybe that changes, some folks' opinions about Alabama's season of, okay, we just ran into a buzzsaw now for 2 years in a row with UConn last year and Duke this year. But, still the expectation was that you were, especially after the way you played against BYU, you showed that you can play and be among the best teams in the country. And unfortunately, that just didn't show up on Saturday against Duke. But Auburn moving on to the Final Four, Duke moving on to the Final Four. How did the other SEC teams fare? Florida and Tennessee and their Elite Eight matchups. We will break down those games for you and take a look at how many SEC teams we're going to have in the Final Four and what that matchup is going to look like when we return here on Morning Jocks and Jocks 94.5. .622, welcome back into Morning Jocks here on Jocks 94.5. Conrad Van Order, Pat Smith with you here on your Monday morning, recapping everything that happened over the weekend in the world of college hoops. Auburn advancing to their second Final Four, their first since 2019 with their win over Michigan State last night. Alabama coming up short in the Elite Eight as they fall to Duke 85-65 on Saturday. So two of the Final Four teams we have covered now between the Auburn Tigers and the Duke Blue Devils, but that means that there are two more to get to, Pat. And so the other Elite Eight game matchups, we both had SEC representation in them. Why don't we start with the game we had yesterday, the early game yesterday before Auburn and Michigan State, where you had the number 2 seed Tennessee Volunteers taking on the 1 seeded Houston Cougars, and a Tennessee program that still looking to get to its first Final Four, Pat. A team that has made a number of deep tournament runs, but just can't quite get over that hurdle of making it to a Final Four under head coach Rick Barnes. And yesterday they go up against the Houston Cougars team. We knew it was going to be a defensive bloodbath in this kind of a matchup. I was very excited going into the game just to see potentially how low scoring it could get. And unfortunately, Tennessee decided to take me up on that challenge. Houston, not so much. But Houston knocks off Tennessee 69-50. Tennessee scored 15 points in the first half. Yes, 15 points in 20 minutes of basketball. Houston was up 34-15 at halftime. And at that point, I mean, it just there was no hope for Tennessee when you're going into a halftime with a deficit and going, man, not only are we down 19 points, we just need to score 19 points in the second half, because it was a horrible night offensively for the Tennessee Volunteers. And we kind of knew going into it, we had talked about it last week, was, this Tennessee team through the first weekend, Chaz Lanier had shown up. He had hit the shots that he needed to make. And that's why you saw Tennessee kind of get on a roll offensively. And then that all came to a screeching halt against Houston yesterday, as Chaz Lanier goes 4 of 18, 2 of 12 from the 3-point line. Zakai Ziegler only hit one shot. He goes 1 for 9 yesterday. And just the guys that you would expect to contribute to Tennessee offensively chose a bad time to have their worst game of the year, Pat.
Yeah, it was startling watching that first half and seeing how poorly, not that Tennessee is Alabama, Auburn, Florida when it comes to offense, but just 15 points. I think about this. It's the lowest amount of points scored in a half of basketball in the history of 1 and 2 seeds in the NCAA basketball tournament. A 1 or a 2 seed had never scored that low in a half of basketball. It was startling. But when you start out 0 for 14 from the 3-point arc, which Tennessee did not hit the 20-point plateau until 17 minutes left to go in the game. So they had played 23 minutes of basketball and 20 points. That it was just startling to see. And Houston, as we know, because Alabama and Auburn both played them this year, both had victories against the Cougars. They're a very good basketball team. And so Tennessee not only had to play the type of defense, because if you said, okay, you're going to limit Houston to 35 first half points, okay, that's pretty good. We're going to give up 34 points in the second half. Okay, that's good. But for everyone on that Tennessee roster offensively, just to decide to have their worst night career-wise offensively, that was a really bad time for Rick Barnes and the Tennessee team. I also thought that they played really, really good in the second half in regards to trying to battle back. I think they got it under 10 points. But every time you thought that Tennessee was about to make this run and maybe get it within a couple of possessions, Houston would just hit a big 3-point shot. And those guards are just so dangerous for Houston. So I know we haven't talked a lot about the Cougars because we've been concentrating on the SEC and especially Alabama and Auburn. But this is a very good Houston team. And it would not surprise me in the least if they cut down the nets there in the state of Texas. But Houston really took Tennessee to the woodshed yesterday.
Yeah, it was it was hard to watch. I know I texted you at one point, and I said I almost felt bad for what.
And
Tennessee.
And listen, when I got that text from you, I didn't believe you one bit. I mean, there's no
that's
way
how bad it was.
There's no way that an Alabama graduate feels bad about anything that's going horribly wrong for the Tennessee Volunteers. So I did not buy that. I showed it to Leanne, and Leanne was like going, "Who's he trying to kid?" And I said, "I don't know, but he ain't kidding me."
Well, the key word, Pat, was I almost felt bad for
Oh,
Tennessee.
yeah, that's true. You didn't say almost.
I was pondering the idea of feeling bad for Tennessee. But yeah, ultimately
But it
no.
quickly went out the window.
Yeah,
You were
no
good with
tears
it?
were shed in the Van Order household
Especially
yesterday.
after the night before. I mean, when your beanie was soaking wet with your tears,
It was bad.
and then now all of a sudden Tennessee is falling down by the wayside. Yeah, I didn't believe that.
No, but we did one better than them because Alabama lost by 20, Tennessee only 19. So if that's the kind of thing that if that's the kind of thing that you care about, but no, I mean, yeah, congrats to Houston. I think in that scenario, you look at that game and you go, man, we left a lot of points out there on the floor last night, and we still were able to walk away with a 19-point win against number 2 seed. You will certainly take that. So Houston advances to the Final Four as well, where they will take on Duke. And if I saw this come out yesterday, and it was kind of going viral a little bit on social media, but somebody went back and found Ken Palm's rankings of the 10 best basketball teams of the last decade. And according to Ken Palm, at least at this point in the season, this year's Duke team and this year's Houston's team are the number 1 and number 2 rated teams in Ken Palm over the last decade of college basketball. So you are, at least according to Ken Palm, if you trust in those ratings, you are technically getting to see the 2 best college basketball teams of the last decade do battle in the Final Four coming up this Saturday. So that'll be a lot of fun there. But you did have one more game on Friday or on Saturday, excuse me, and that was Florida taking on the Texas Tech Raiders. The only Final Four or Elite Eight matchup, Pat, we had that wasn't a 1 seed versus a 2 seed. We really went off the chalk on this one, Pat. It was a 1 seed versus a 3 seed.
Hmm.
So a big upset there in Texas Tech making it to the Elite Eight. But man, what a basketball game this was. I mean, Texas Tech, this one is similar to how the Arkansas lost to Texas Tech in the Sweet
Yeah.
16 is going to sting for a long time. This loss to Florida is really, really going to sting Texas Tech fans for a long, long time because they were in control of this game essentially the entire way through until the last couple of minutes. And then Florida remembered that they are a number 1 seed and the reason that so many people picked them to win the title. And they flexed their muscle down the stretch in the last couple of minutes and were able to take this thing over, Pat. But an impressive win for Florida, 84-79 over Texas Tech. And but yeah, just a tough pill to swallow for Texas Tech fans as you had a double-digit lead over
Hmm.
the Gators for a large portion of that game on Saturday, but unfortunately just ran out of gas at the wrong time in the last couple of minutes.
No, you said it. I mean, the Texas Tech game reminded you almost what took place against Arkansas in the previous round. So you're up by 9. You got 2:51 on the clock. If you're in Lubbock, Texas, I mean, you're probably, getting MapQuest out and trying to figure out, okay, what's the quickest way to San Antonio because we're going to the Final Four. I mean, that's your plan, right? But then the last 2 minutes, Florida goes on that 12-2 run, and you just cannot say enough. I mean, he's an All-American, and Walter Clayton Jr., that fadeaway three with 59 seconds left to give
Mm-hmm.
Florida that 78-77 lead. I mean, that's what All-Americans do, and that's what he did. But you can't say enough about Thomas Houck and what he did. I know that Clayton Jr. is going to get all the press, but Houck, he was 4 of 6 from the three-point arc, and he had 20 points and he had 11 rebounds. So he had a double-double. And again, they just commit you in so many different waves. It's going to be a fascinating matchup to see how Bruce Pearl is able to go back and look to see what his protege Todd Golden, what he did in Neville Arena, and how this Auburn defense is going to have to try to stop this 3, 4, 5-headed monster that is Florida basketball. But it's an impressive win to come back the way they did on the stage they did and get to the Final Four.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And a lot of people, myself included, happy to see them move on because we had them winning our brackets. So I know.
So how does your bracket look right now in regards to your Final Four? I mean, your main one, not the one I know you've probably gotten 4 or 5, but I mean the main one. What is it looking like right now?
Yeah, so my main one is half correct. I had I correctly picked Florida and I have them as my national champion. I had Houston, and then but I had Alabama and Michigan State in the Final Four. So I missed on both of those. But yeah, I got Florida and Houston correctly, and hindsight's always 2020, but who would have thought this would be the first year since 2008 that you would have all of the 1 seeds
Yeah,
repeating? But
exactly.
when you go back and look and just kind of the way that the tournament's shaken out. It's, man, why did I not think that? Why did I not pick that? But congratulations to my beautiful, wonderful wife who did have all four number one seeds and making it to the final four.
Good for her. She
Uh,
went to chalk route. Yeah,
yes,
I've only got
yes,
one left, and it's Auburn. I predicted Auburn to win the national championship. That's the only one still standing. I had Tennessee, Wisconsin, and Maryland as my other Final Four teams. So I know Landrum, our cohort on three man front, he had picked four SEC teams in the Final Four. So he's standing at 2 for 4. So
yes.
not bad.
No, not bad at all. But that is your recap of the Elite Eight as we move on. So no games this week. The Final Four will kick off on Saturday. You're going to have Florida and Auburn. That's going to be the first tip a little after 5 p.m. there on CBS this Saturday. And then following that game, you're going to have Houston and Duke. Also on CBS there with the national championship game to follow on Monday. So a lot to talk about this week. We will break down Auburn and Florida ad nauseum, as well as Houston and Duke. A lot to talk about. But today we will continue with the reaction. We want to hear from you. 205 834 9450 on the Courtesy GMC text line. Auburn fans, how excited are you about getting back to the Final Four? What do you think about the matchup against Florida coming up on Saturday? And Alabama fans, what are your thoughts on the season? Do you consider it a success? Do you consider it a bit of a disappointment not making it back to the Final Four? We want to hear all that reaction from you on the text line. When we come back here on Morning Jocks, we will read the text and we will get to the Birmingham Stallions, who had their season opener yesterday. How did the Stallions fare as they begin their quest for a four-peat after the success of last season? So we will dive into what happened with the Birmingham Stallions and read your text when we return here on Morning Jocks and Jocks 94.5. Welcome back into Morning Jocks here on your Monday morning. Conrad and Pat here with you until 7 o'clock when we turn it over to McElroy and Kublik in the morning. They'll be with you from 7 to 10. Then Pat will be back from 10 until 2 on the award-winning broadcast that is Three Man Front. And then there's some guy called Feinberg that comes on after you, right, Pat?
I think he's got a good future.
Something like
yeah,
he's a real up and comer in the industry from what I understand. But appreciate you joining us here, spending your Monday with us on Jocks 94.5. So spending a lot of time recapping what happened in the NCAA tournament over the weekend. But we did have the return of spring football here in the city of Birmingham. Well, technically in Washington, D.C., because it was a road game for the Birmingham Stallions. But they opened up their season on the road against the D.C. Defenders, and definitely not the way that you want to start off the quest for a four-peat, unfortunately, for the Stallions. They come up short. They lose 18-11 yesterday to the DC Defenders. They were down 11-12 at halftime. They get shut out in the second half. Alex Magoo returning under center for the Stallions. He goes 10 of 23 for 89 yards, a touchdown, and an interception through the air. But he did add 84 yards on the ground and had some really impressive scrambles late, Pat, when Birmingham was trying to drive down the field and potentially have an opportunity to send the game to overtime or pull off a late victory there. But on the other side, you had Jordan Teamu, the former Ole Miss quarterback. He goes 17 of 37 for 211 yards, a touchdown, and an interception there. And ultimately, that was enough for the Defenders as they start off the season 1-0, and now the Birmingham Stallions start the season off 0-1 as they prepare to take on Michigan next week.
Yeah, it's going to be a quick turnaround. Listening to Skip Holtz's post-game press conference yesterday, very disappointed in the offensive line. They gave up 8 sacks yesterday. So, Landrum and we worked with Alex Magoo a couple years ago at the quarterback position. We're going to have to get Cole to go down there and work on the offensive line because it was putrid. I mean, it was really, really bad. And you could tell the frustration of Magoo in that game. He just didn't have any time, hence the reason why his passing numbers did not look very good. He did have the 84 yards rushing, as you mentioned. The more interesting thing happened at the midfield handshake. DC, just like Memphis, was going through some issues with their head coaching position. Not that there was any controversy. It was just the fact that Wisenhunt had stepped down for personal reasons in Memphis a week leading off to kickoff. You had DC's head coach. He took another job in the college ranks. So Shannon Harris, who is the interim head coach of the DC Defenders, he apparently had thought or misinterpreted something that maybe was said in a presser, or maybe something was said, because all these teams, they train and work together in Arlington, which is kind of a weird scenario, especially since you're not in COVID. But that's the way the UFL does it for monetary purposes. And apparently Harris was accusing Skip Holtz. If you did not see the video, you need to do a search on your social media for it because it was pretty interesting. Basically, I think Harris was accusing Skip Holtz of calling him a doorman, something of that nature. If you listen to the microphones and you listen to the clip, and of course Skip Holtz is like, what are you talking about? I never said that. And so then, the whole DC group was, yelling stuff at the Birmingham head coach, and it was pretty interesting afterwards. And Skip Holtz will be a guest on Three Man Front today at 11:30. And we'll ask him straight up, what that was about and if the air had been cleared and all is good. Listen, we've gotten to know Skip Holtz really well over the course of them being in Birmingham. And Landrum and I have had the opportunity off the air to be able to have conversations and get to know Skip Holtz. I find it very hard to believe that Skip Holtz would say that towards an opposing coach. And so hopefully that misunderstanding or whatever it was in the post-game handshake, that will be taken care of. But it's a quick turnaround for Birmingham because they play Friday night. So you travel, you don't get home until back to Arlington till around midnight last night. They give the players off Monday, and then all of a sudden you're back on the field on Tuesday to try to implement a plan, because then you got to travel Thursday. So you've basically only got about a day and a half to get ready for a Michigan Panther team. So it will be interesting to see if the Stallions can avoid going 0-2 to start the season.
Yes, they will certainly look to do that, and we expect that they'll get right back on track. We know that, a little bit of a bump in the road for the Stallions, but that's all right with some new pieces and returning faces and things like that. But yeah, rough start to the season for the Stallions, and we'll see if they can get back up on the saddle on Friday against Michigan. All right, well, let's go to the phone line real quick here because we have somebody who is not only a big Stallions fan, Pat, but also a big Auburn Tigers fan. That is our friend Don Don. How are you doing this morning, this Monday morning, Don
Good
Don?
morning, guys. It's great to be an Auburn Tiger. Yes, sir, baby.
I guess you're excited this morning, Don Don. It was a big win for you yesterday.
A
I was
little
very
bit.
excited for you.
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Pat, how are you today?
I'm doing fantastic, Don Don. How was the crowd down at Ramblers?
Oh, my goodness. There's probably about 100 people there. PG and his son came, and Social Tycho Burr and Creed. But I had, unfortunately, Pat, I made a huge mistake, buddy. I did the scheduling at my job and everything, and I scheduled myself to work yesterday, which was miserable.
What? The day of the Stallions and Auburn going for the attempt to get to San Antonio? Oh, my gosh.
Yes. I was able to go down the Ramblers for a little while, but I had to go back and be back at work at about 3:15. Had to take a catering order all the way out to McCalla, everything. Then I had to go back and work during the Auburn game. That was not fun.
My goodness. Well, the end result was good for you, Don Don. So that was good.
After mistake. I didn't care about work. Me and my other coworker. We're both Auburn fans. We were both miserable. But what a game, and man, hey, hats off to Janai Brown. Oh my goodness.
No doubt.
Everything. Was that not a Willis? Conrad won't remember. Was that not a Willis Reed moment?
Oh, listen, it was. I mean, when he came back into the game, and then he hit the 3-point shot, I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, if you're an Auburn basketball fan, you will remember that moment for a very, very long time because just the heart and soul of this basketball team. In my opinion, he should be the National Player of the Year. I know they're going to just basically, give it to Cooper Flagg just because he plays at Duke.
Oh,
and Cooper Flagg is good.
Absolutely.
But I have been consistent with this about midway through the season till today that, you have the best player in the toughest conference in basketball and the number of tough games, quad one games that Auburn played in, and he dominated and he showed up for every game. And for him not to win the National Player of the Year award, I mean, they should just stop voting for it because that's criminal for Janai Broom not to get that award. But I think we all know what's going to happen. It will be Cooper Flagg.
Well, absolutely. By the thought, Jay Billis and all those media guys will.
It's because Auburn's not a blue blood, Don Don. You know what? That's why. That's why he's not going to win it. It's because he doesn't play in the luxurious ACC. That's why.
No, you're right. But real quickly, guys, I know y'all got to go. Shout out to PG and his Gators, but me and him have already started our war. It's Warwick. It's on, PG.
That's going to be good. That's going to be fun at Social Taco tomorrow. So that'll be fun.
We're going to have a good time tomorrow. We're going to have got a lot to talk about, guys. Well, thank you, guys, and y'all have a great Monday.
Thank you, Don Don.
Thank you, Don Don. Always good to hear from you. So we can hear from you as well. 205-834-9450 if you want to chime in on the courtesy GMC text line. Alabama hoops, Auburn hoops, Birmingham Stallions, Major League Baseball opening weekend, whatever's on your mind.
Oh, what a great weekend of Major League Baseball. Man, you and I mean, we're on cloud nine. Are you kidding me?
I know. We're, 4 undefeated teams in baseball, and we are fans of 2 of them. So
yeah, how about that? 50% of the undefeated teams in Major League Baseball reside on the air right now, the Cardinals and the Yankees.
That's right. And one of the
even though you guys are using illegal bats and the torpedo bats, so I'm not going to go there. Just whatever.
Well, all that money we saved on Juan Soto going to the Mets, we were able to go and hire some kid from MIT to come and design us new baseball bats. For you. And that
absolutely
that's certainly working out. So when we come back here on Morning Jocks, we'll put a bow on the show. We will hear from your text, get your reaction to a wild weekend around the sports world. So appreciate you tuning in. You're listening to Morning Jocks on Jocks 94.5.
It's 6:52 on this Monday. Please be weather aware. We've got some storms rolling into the state of Alabama. It should be in Metro Birmingham between 8 and 9 o'clock this morning. I know some schools are delaying start this morning, so just please stay weather aware. And you can always listen to Jocks 94.5 for the very latest, or our sister's station, Talk 99.5.
Absolutely. Thank you, Pat. And we've been getting your text all morning long on the courtesy GMC text line. So how about we read some of those, Pat, get some reaction from our wonderful listeners here this morning on Morning Jocks. So this one comes in talking about the Player of the Year award. Somebody says, I agree Janai deserves it this year, but he can never say he was the best player in college because of a freshman. Cooper Flagg is tough. Cooper Flagg could be Larry Bird-like. Janai's ceiling is Chris Bosh or Kevin Love. Still a star, even an all-star, but not a superstar. I don't see it. And I agree with that in terms of, if we're talking about NBA comps, but...
Yeah, but we're not giving an award in college
Correct.
for what you're going to do 5 years from now in the NBA. I don't
Correct.
doubt at all that I think Cooper Flagg will have listen, you follow the NBA closer than I do, but just from my perspective, I would be shocked if Cooper Flagg did not have a long, illustrious career in the NBA. I think it will probably be longer than Janai Broome, but you cannot deny what Janai Broome has done this year against the talent that he has faced and how many times he's answered the bell and performed for his Auburn Tigers. I think it's hands down.
No, I absolutely agree with that. Let's see. Josh in Huntsville, he texted in. He says, Janai Broome, first player with 25 points, 10 or more rebounds, and 75% or better shooting in a tournament game since Hakeem Olajuwon. It's pretty good company to be in there. Let's see. John texted in. He says, as much as I like Mark Sears and knowing him since he was a kid, Duke exposed him being criminally left-handed. Duke looked like every Duke team I've seen since UNLV blew them out. Might as well have been Grant Hill and Bobby Hurley. Something about Knipple if Duke was a person. Okay, I don't know. He was trying to make a joke about Knipple, I think.
And Knipple almost came to Alabama. Wisconsin kid, and Nate Oates had a relationship with Knipple's father back in Wisconsin, and so Alabama thought they had a pretty good shot at him, but Knipple had 21 points for the Blue Devils against Alabama the other night.
Yep, and finally, Luke from Highlands, he texted in and says, I'm in the same boat as Conrad. I almost felt bad for Tennessee, but then I remembered that they're low down, they dirty, and they some snitches, RTR.
That is true.
That's how we like it. Well, appreciate all of you joining us. Pat, thank you for hopping on this morning for a Reaction Monday here on Morning Jocks. We'll be back tomorrow at 6 a.m. and McElroy and Kublik in the morning. They're next.